Hey guys, this is Sean DeGray. Nobody knows who that is, but it's me.
And you are listening to
The Gritty Bowman.
It's all in perspective, right? If you could make $150,000 a year, but you had to work 80 hours a week and you were committed to a corporation that you hated what you did, is that more lucrative than making $70,000 a year doing what you love with a lot of free time? And who's richer?
One of the things I never want to say, and I even think this with life, is I never want to say, like, what if? Like, what? I hate that. I hate that feeling. What if I would have done this? Or what if I would have just tried this? Or what if? What if? And there's very few things that I say what if about. Very few things. And that gives me a lot of peace of mind. So that helps give me drive, because I don't want to ever say what if.
Randy always says this, you're going to run out of health before you run out of money.
I've made Rocky Mountain oysters.
Nice.
Tom's not a huge fan of them. He doesn't like the texture of
the nutty
scallops.
flavor.
The nutty.
We cherish it, right? And when you receive something, like someone brings you like a salmon that they caught, they bring it to you and you're like, dude, we're going to save this and we're going to have it like at Thanksgiving. He's like, if you went and bought a salmon at the store and you brought it over and you said, hey, I just bought this down at Safeway, you'd be like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
but something about getting it and sourcing it yourself that is totally different.
I always enjoy the story behind the meal. So as you're eating something, backstrap is one of those things too, because you write on the package, Anna's backstrap, Ohio buck, 2017.
Right, and it usually tastes better than Tom's, right?
I mean,
I'm curious, like, what are your favorite kind of side dishes to have with wild game meals? All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowman Podcast. We are in beautiful Pennsylvania. It's Seven Springs, Pennsylvania, at the Total Archery Challenge. And I am joined by, well, Outdoor Anna Lee.
yes.
Hello. And we shot the course today. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's really good.
We did the Mountain Ops course, and we had a good time.
Yes. I've never been to Seven Springs. The mountain blew my mind.
You mean our hill? We don't have the vertical you guys have out in Colorado.
No, it's but still, it's a good hill.
The fact that the caribou that they're shooting is halfway up the mountain just tells you what we're working with here.
So tell folks who don't know who you are a little bit about you, your full name, where you're from. Give us a little background of.
Okay. Well, my name is Anna Lee, as Brian just said, and my Instagram and blog is Outdoor Anna Leah.
Mm-hmm. How do you spell that?
LEA.
Okay.
Like Outdoor Anna.
Outdoor Anna is ANNA.
Yeah.
And LEA.
So people
LEA.
say Lee, people say Leah. It's actually Anna Lee. You know the song "The Weight" by the band? And he says, yeah, come on, old Anna Lee.
Yeah.
My mom liked the song, so that's Anna Lee. But that's where you can find my social media stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
But and I'm from around here, so I grew up coming up to this mountain, and we have a place not far from here, and my husband and I met up here. So
that's crazy.
My roots are in here.
Seven Springs, PA. I'm out here, at the resort here. We call it a resort, right? It's a resort.
Yeah, it is a resort.
A ski resort.
Yeah.
In Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And
Pennsylvania.
Shot bows with your husband.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys met here.
Yeah. Kind of crazy. So, and my parents actually kind of started hanging out because they would both come up here too. So it kind of goes full circle, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. So
I kind of ran into you online, just, Instagram kind of stuff. It's kind of cool how social media is today. Really does put you in contact with people you've never met before. And we met on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I started watching your posts, and you were posting some pretty cool recipes, and you really are into the whole food thing.
Yes. So the reason I got into hunting, back into hunting initially, was I didn't eat a lot of meat, factory farming, didn't sit well with me. So as a means to get your own meat, what better way to hunt than to hunt?
Yeah.
And I grew up around hunting. My dad's a big hunter, and my husband was the one who said, "You're eating all the meat that we have from hunting. You should start contributing." So
Go Tom. Tom's behind the camera, by the way. Thank you, Tom.
So I could participate in hunting and help fill the freezer. We started hunting together, and it's also a really nice thing that the two of us can do together. He was going out to camp every weekend for archery season. We didn't get to spend a lot of time together, so I got into bow hunting, and the rest is history. I love it. It's a lot of fun. This past season was my second season with a bow, but I just love to find different ways to cook wild game that people wouldn't really necessarily maybe think of. And also people that don't say they like wild game, to try to introduce them to it in a different way.
Yeah.
So we have some cool recipes that I make, and people don't know it's wild game.
So tell me, what is one of your favorite recipes?
Oh, we have a recipe for meatloaf, and it.
For real?
Yeah, I swear to God. It's morel mushroom
Really?
meatloaf. So me and my husband also, thanks to my dad, got into foraging. And around this area, you can find morel mushrooms during the spring. It was about 3 weeks ago that the season kind of died down. You got to know where to find them. They really like around this area to come around recently dead and decaying elm trees.
Okay.
We have something that's called the Dutch elm disease.
Yes.
And that, for whatever reason, spawns a lot of morel mushrooms.
Really?
So we do that, and that's another thing we get to do together.
Morels are good.
They're so good.
They
so
really are. It's like bacon mushrooms.
They're, yeah.
They kind of have
and they're not
they
even
taste like meat.
They have like an
they
earthy
do.
taste, a meaty taste, which pairs really well with the wild game. They just, if it goes together, it grows together.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, or goes together, grows together, goes together. But the meatloaf is just, I have the recipe on my blog.
So what's in it?
So it's venison, obviously, ground venison. You take a whole loaf of like Italian bread, like big Italian bread, and you take the inside out, and you cook that down in a reduction of. I like to reconstitute the morels, and I call that like the golden broth. So the reconstituted morel mushroom liquid in the bread from the inside of the bread is kind of the base.
Okay.
Which is a really weird thing. It's hard to describe when you're writing a recipe because you have to like cook that down and make it into like a mash.
Yeah.
And then you do breadcrumbs. My parents, when they make it, because they started making it, and I've tweaked it to my own little recipe, but they put what is it? The meat. Prosciutto. I leave that out because I don't do
prosciutto.
Yeah, I
Is
leave
that like Italian sausage,
Yeah, it's
kind of
Italian,
burger stuff.
I'm
probably butchering it, but your parents like to put that in,
they
but
put
you don't.
The original recipe that they found about 10, 15 years ago called for that, but we've just kind of made it our own. Like, I think if you look at my recipe and you look at the original recipe, you wouldn't think they were the same.
Got it.
And then an egg yolk and some onion and garlic, and that's pretty much your meatloaf. And
it's good, huh?
Then you brown it on each side and in a pot, and then you put white wine and you reduce that.
Yep.
And then you do tomato paste and the rest of the reconstituted morel broth. You let that sit. I like to flip them a couple times, but you let that sit for a good hour cooking. So it caramelizes, and then you throw the morels in to cook them. We've never had anybody be disappointed by this recipe.
Really?
I made it for my husband's parents the first time I cooked for them.
Yeah.
As like I'm dating your son, and I really like him. Please like me kind of thing. So that's one of my favorites. Also because it's not something you're going to have all the time, because morels are really hard to find. So you treat them with respect, and you cook them.
It's so funny.
sparingly.
I heard Shane Mahoney on a podcast recently, the Rookie Hunter podcast, which I've been listening to. here and there. And they were talking to Shane Mahoney. He's a conservationist guy, and he was saying that he really likes to eat. Like we have a tendency to go out and shoot some big game, bring it home, and then share it with people. And we cherish it, right? And when you receive something, like someone brings you like a salmon that they caught, they bring it to you and you're like, dude, we're going to save this and we're going to have it like at Thanksgiving, or we're going to have it at this special birthday or whatever for so-and-so. I already know what I'm going to do with it. He's like, if you went and bought a salmon at the store and you brought it over and you said, hey, I just bought this down at Safeway or whatever, supermarket, here it is, you'd be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But something about getting it and sourcing it yourself that is totally different.
I always enjoy the story behind the meal. So as you're eating something, backstrap is one of those things too, because you write on the package. I don't know about you guys, but we write like Anna's backstrap, Ohio buck, 2017.
Right, and it usually tastes better than Tom's, right?
I mean, it does taste a lot better to me. But no, that there's just something special. Not only sharing something that you harvested yourself with somebody, but the story that goes along with it. And that always intrigues me. I'm like, so where did this come from? Tell me the struggles behind this. And, that is kind of cool. It's like an ingredient that people don't really think about, but it's that extra love.
Absolutely.
Which is really, really cool.
The elk that I had to carry like 8 miles out is a lot more meaningful than the deer I shot in my backyard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like one might taste, it's just there's something more to that adventure that's attached to it.
The blood, sweat, and tears that went into it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So tell me, your blog, how many recipes do you have out there?
So I don't have as many as I'd like to right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get into it, but by the time you tweak a recipe enough that the ingredient, like the measurements.
Yep.
I'm really bad at that. I just kind of eyeball it. I cook by feel. And when people are asking you for recipes, you're like, oh yeah,
you just do this and do that, and they're
this
totally
much
like,
of that, yeah.
That's no help.
It doesn't work,
Anna,
especially when
no
people who aren't familiar with cooking ask you for a recipe, and they're very technical. So by the time I get a recipe where I like it, cook it, photograph it, write it, I'm like, okay, I'm exhausted. So I'm working on getting better. The morel one I finally did after a while, but I'd like to have some more recipes up during this off season, during the summer. I'm going to really work on getting some recipes. My goal is to try to get one up every other week.
Yep.
One a month I'd be happy with. So, and they're not the recipes like everybody can cook a backstrap. That they're more of the stuff that you don't think of, like meatloaf.
Right.
Or, what? Well, yeah, quail curry.
Really?
Yeah, that is awesome. I make a green curry with quail.
Really?
And that's pretty phenomenal. We eat a lot of curry in our house. We like spicy stuff. But you can make it and not have it very spicy.
I had your jalapeno mule deer pepperoni.
Yeah.
Or meat stick, whatever it was.
Pretty good.
Some of the best I've had. You didn't make it.
I didn't. I won't take credit for that one. We do make one. It's
that was good though.
It's a log.
One of the best.
It tastes similar to that, but we put some. It's jalapeno and cheddar, and we do that with we have our own smoker that we took a refrigerator.
Yeah. And
turned it into a smoker, so we
you
can
guys
smoke.
are seriously like.
We have a walk-in cooler in our basement.
I use a Traeger. It measures it for me and smokes.
Yeah.
So you guys actually burn fire in the old refrigerator deal.
Yeah. Our setup, we're pretty lucky. So when my dad built our house, he had in mind that he wanted to process his own meat, and he wanted a place for his friends to all come and process their meat.
Yeah.
So whenever a local school was shutting down, he went to the auction and got their kitchen equipment. So we have an industrial walk-in cooler and a big table. And a lot of times people think we own a butcher shop, but we don't. So we are very lucky that we process our own deer and we smoke everything, and we get that satisfaction from the hunt and then from processing it, and then we like to share. So
So we were talking because you and I and Tom were shooting the mountain ops course today, which we crushed it. I mean, if you followed anything online, we shared our
all 12s all day,
all 12s
no
all day.
broken arrows, no lost arrows.
That's right. So we shot that course, but we were talking, and you were telling me that you're, I was kind of like, why do you do what you do? Like, why are you sharing your story online on to the public? Why are you putting it on Instagram and so forth? And you were telling me how you really like where your food comes from is very important to you.
Yeah.
And also so is food. Like, you like food and eating it, and we got into who's influential to you, or who are you drawn to, and you mentioned Stephen Rinella.
Yeah, he's a big idol of mine. I really enjoy his show and his recipes and the things he does, so it's kind of cool to see him do something and get inspired.
So I'm a big fan of Rinella as well. Have been since I first saw it, for a lot of reasons, but one of those, the biggest reasons, is because where he's really shown that connection between the food we eat and the hunting and the food we eat. Like, they're tied together.
Yeah.
So it's like, have you ever taken Rinella's, have you done any of the episodes where you use his recipes? Like, he has this special called bone-in cuts.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And
yeah.
my mom and stuff, we all were like, we got to do this.
Yeah.
And it's Thanksgiving, and so we cooked everything he did. First of all, we went out hunting and purposely got all those bone-in cuts and kept them. In fact, I packed the bear out with all the bone in and stuff so I could eat this bear bone in. We did it with some elk and stuff like that. And when we're out there, it was pretty far to hike with bones. But I was like, I also
extra
want
weight.
Yeah, but I was like, I want the bone broth, So he inspired me. So I did. And we brought all the bones home and stuff, and then we did the bone in recipes and stuff. Exactly like he said, because I'm not this all creative, a dash of this and a dash, and he said about this much. No, I need to know exactly how much of everything and put it together.
Yeah.
I'm like retarded. So I did it just like he said, and the whole family, my sisters joined in, my mom got into it, and we cooked this huge meal of all these different, we did every recipe he had on that special. And
that's really cool.
It was awesome.
Was it?
It was incredible. It was like, I've never cooked with some of the things he mentioned, like fennel.
Oh, yeah, fennel.
All these different herbs and stuff. And I kind of also realized that there's certain, and that we went and got them whole, right? These herbs.
Did you grind them?
Yeah, and we ground them. We did everything kind of like he did, where differently than how we would have done it in the past is we would have bought maybe it already ground inside of a shaker. And he's like, no, you really want fresh, and he was grinding them and doing it all too. And man, it was all the different flavors and all the way they were all mixed together, and then how long you cook certain things, like the shank with the bone on. We tied a string around the shank there with the bone in the center and cook it down. Dude, it was just awesome. I decided at that point that I need to step up my cooking game. I'm missing out.
I could send you a couple recipes if you'd like. You could try them out. But Steve does an awesome job. We just made his turkey Spätzle.
Oh, yeah?
I shot my first turkey this year, opening day in Pennsylvania, and I cooked another one of his recipes on Thanksgiving. It was like a turducken kind of thing with wild turkey and venison, but it was the first time doing it, so I kind of didn't read the recipe all the way. I was like, I got this. And I'm like, oops. But the Spätzle, you pound it out real thin, the turkey breast, then you lightly bread it, and then you fry it. And I fried it in olive oil. I think he used butter was the only thing I veered off the recipe, but it turned out so good. I made it
really
2 days in a row. And we had people over for the Penguins game, and they had it, and they said, I've never had if you would tell me that's wild turkey, I would tell you you're full of it, because it was so tender and just a really good meal to have.
So other than game meat, you really don't eat meat. So you must be eating something, but so I'm curious, what are your favorite kind of side dishes to have that aren't meat that you like to have with wild game meals?
With wild game meals, well, we grow a lot of our own lettuces in the summer and stuff, and we try to grow herbs, and we'll do peppers, and then we'll dehydrate them and grind them. So we do have our own herbs that we have and stuff like that. But we're not big starch people for whatever reason. Yep. I do like potatoes every once in a while, but we'll do this recipe that we just take root vegetables, so beets, parsnips, carrots, and we just toss them in a little bit of olive oil with some of the basil that I had dried the previous year. You just use store-bought basil, and a little bit of sea salt, and we roast them, and then we serve it over arugula, which is that peppery bite, which also goes really well with wild game. And I make my homemade dressing. It has Dijon, horseradish, and some Italian seasonings and olive oil, and you pour that over the roasted root vegetables with backstrap. You can't go wrong.
Dude, is your dressing recipe up there?
It can be.
You should put it up there.
You'll inspire me. I'll have motivation to post it.
Because when this podcast goes out, I need to see that recipe. Because
I'll work on that for you.
I'm not a huge fan of store-bought dressings. I mean, they fill them with soybean oil and all kinds of crap. And even the stuff that's supposed to be, quote-unquote, healthy, it's really not that good. No. There's a lot of fillers and different things in it. And so it's kind of tough to find a good dressing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to beat just olive oil and vinaigrette.
Yeah.
Balsamic vinegar.
We use a lot of balsamic vinaigrette, but Tom he could testify that if we don't have dressing that I've made, I'll just use straight Dijon mustard, watered down. I'd rather have that over.
I'm the same way.
Over a store bought, because I try not to look at the ingredients too much, but we eat a lot of whole foods and vegetables and
us too.
Stuff that we can pair with wild game.
People look at me like I have two heads. I'm in the apartment in the hotel here with Jordan Harbertson and Ty Stubblefield, good friends of mine, and I'm in there eating whole broccoli and kale, and asparagus, and they're like, "How do you eat that stuff raw?" And I'm like, "I like it.
It's good.
I actually like it." And so salad, I've gotten to the point where I actually don't eat salad with dressing a lot of the time because I don't want the crap that comes with it, and I'm too lazy to make my own, and so I've acquired a taste for just green veggies.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to later on this evening. Our arugula is just starting to sprout up, and it's just so good. And I'm like, peppery arugula salad sounds awesome for dinner, but once you get used to eating whole foods, how they're meant to taste, you don't need all that stuff on top of it. And we don't eat a lot of cheese, I try to avoid dairy.
Oh, dude.
And when I was in Nebraska last year, snow goose hunting, we were in the middle of nowhere, and all the restaurants had nothing but fried foods and greasy burgers.
That reminds me of Waynesboro.
I've never been there. Maybe I shouldn't go.
There was a restaurant there. I worked there for 3 months one summer. And it was there was one restaurant in Waynesboro. If you're from Waynesboro, I'm sorry. But there, at the time, this is a while ago, there was one restaurant. And I swear to you, everything on the menu, there was 30 choices. It was all fried.
That's kind of the same situation as Nebraska. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
What'd you eat?
I ended up getting, the only thing that wasn't fried on the menu was cod. And they had a baked cod. I'm like, actually I had to request the baked cod. They didn't have it on the menu. I'm like, can you just not dip that in batter and fry it and stuff I don't recognize? Just give it to me. Just warm it up.
Yeah, the girls were calling me a rabbit because I asked for salad. In Nebraska, salad's a la carte. So they have the little salad cart, and it was shredded iceberg lettuce, a thing of olives, a thing of other different potato salads and all this, and then tomatoes. So I had and shredded cheese, which I didn't have. So I had this big plate of organic,
Yeah.
or not organic, of iceberg lettuce. But I did bring with me some venison jerky. So back in the hotel room, I had my stash.
That was one thing I was going to ask you is I tend to eat different cheeses, like super hard cheeses or I don't know if you call them exotic, but, cheeses with different flavors.
I'll eat those.
And then I'll eat olives. There's so many different types of olives with different flavors. And I'll take those whole olives and whole cheeses, and I'll add that to the plate of just a plain old meat and potato, or not potato, but like an asparagus or broccoli pile and some leafy greens. And I like my food kind of whole with just some herbs and butter.
Yeah.
And so I eat a lot like that, and then I kind of use the olives and the cheeses and stuff to sort of add a little more flavor to that meal. Without and it's surprising how many people have never had. I'll have like 7 different kinds of olives in the fridge and cheeses, and I'll throw them on someone's plate, and they're like, "I've never seen that olive or these cheeses before."
Yeah.
And if it has, and I prefer any olive that has a seed in it.
Oh,
like
we're big olive fans.
Yeah.
So there's a place in Pittsburgh. It's called the Strip District, but there's all these different. You can get meats and cheeses and spices and herbs, and they have a place that they have an olive bar.
Yeah.
And they're not in oil; they're in water, and we have big jars of the olives in our house because we enjoy the good. All like the green olives.
Dude, I can't. My kids,
they don't like them.
They're spoiled. They grew up like this since little, so my kids are much into olives and cheeses and foods that a lot of people don't eat, or raw veggies, and I love it.
Yeah, we Tom, there's a couple different vegetables that I introduced him to when we first started dating, like artichokes.
Dude, love
Never had
artichokes,
artichoke.
man.
We love
Last night they
artichokes.
had them at the restaurant up here. They had lamb chops, little tiny chops with artichoke hearts on them, or artichokes, and it was all kind of steamed and stuff in some kind of garlic butter.
Yeah,
It was
really good.
artichokes, man. They're like kind of like an olive.
Yeah.
They're just good.
They are good, but yeah, we try to make recipes too that people are familiar with. Like I made a buffalo quail dip. It's like buffalo chick dip, but I made it with quail, and it was really good. And then I also poached the quail in Frank's Red Hot to give it that extra.
Yeah, you like spicy.
I like spicy.
I don't do too spicy.
Yeah, but I like to try to. People tend to say that wild game, especially bird, could can be dry. So I poach a lot of the times whenever I cook like wild game.
Really?
I poach it in like a liquid. So I poach. You do you like fruity recipes? I make a Thai like veggie cup with cabbage and cilantro, and then I poach quail in pineapple juice and coconut milk.
Really?
And and then I make a peanut sauce to go on top, and it's pretty phenomenal.
I've done a lot of coconut milk recipes and curry with bear meat. Just because once it sat in the coconut milk all day, it really kind of took out some of the gaminess,
the earthiness,
right?
Yeah.
And then we would cook it in like a slow cooker or something, or put it in the Traeger. But I don't know what it is. Like you'll hear people say, do that with catfish, even because it kind of takes the muddy flavor out.
I learned that trick from my friend Jeremiah. His Instagram is Filled the Plate, but he says, and he would frown upon the word gamey because he says it's not a word. Gamey is not an adjective to describe wild game, but it slips out from time to time. I even say it, but he said to me the one time, if it's a little bit on the gamier side, soak it in something like coconut milk or butternut milk, which I'm not a big fan of dairy, but we've done a lot of the coconut milk, and that's been pretty awesome.
Like I digest dairy like a champ, and when I was a kid, my parents, since I could remember, they got milk from the cow.
Okay,
so it was raw milk
stuff
with the cream on top, and it came in these gallon jars, like pickle jars, those old, right? And so we drive to the farmer's house, and there was just a bin you put your money in, and you just grab your jar of milk, and you just put it out there every day. And we just drive over there and get our milk every other day or so. And we went through tons of milk, and it was like that up through high school. So early high school. So I consumed a lot of milk and cream, and I can't break that habit. Like, it was fresh from the cow. But I also think that dairy doesn't bother me at all, and I know it does for a lot of people. And I think partly that has to do with the fact that when they ate it, they didn't have the bacterias and the enzymes and all the stuff that they needed to digest it, because it didn't come raw like that. And so for me, like, I love ice cream. I love cheeses. I love dairy, because I feel like there's between yogurt, cheeses, butters, like all those high fat foods. And I try to stay away from like lean dairy, because I feel like there's a lot of proteins and stuff in that may or may not have the enzymes and things that you need to digest it. But fat in general is fat, and it's highly digestible, and I really like it. Just satiates well, and so I really like to eat that way. Yeah. I really like dairy a lot, but so when Suzanne brings home like non-fat, I like throw it away. Like, what are you doing, honey? Come on. If it's not whole, I don't want to drink it.
I don't cook. If I'm going to make something, I'm going to use the full fat version. I'm not going to use the watered down. And I like Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec says skim milk is a lie. It's just water lying about being milk.
That's right.
But if we...
I'm down with that, dude.
Yeah, if we do a recipe and it calls for some things, you need those proteins from dairy. You can't substitute. And I've tried and failed many times trying to substitute out dairy or eggs or something in a recipe. And now I'm to the point where I'm just going to use it because it calls for it. And we try to get local organic eggs if we can. Yeah. The milk, I haven't really found a place to get it, but we'll use it from time to time. Yeah. But I have eczema, so when I do drink a lot of dairy, it affects that way. But
I have a daughter that has eczema, and most of my wife's family does, and so dairy causes a bit of an allergic reaction for those guys.
A little flare up, but in moderation. Everything in moderation.
And I love the book, The Paleo Solution, and Mark Sisson's book, The Primal Blueprint. And in Mark Sisson's book, he talks about, the proteins in dairy are what cause that allergic
the whey
response,
and
that
the
autoimmune.
casein.
Yeah, so he's like, if you're eating the fat, it doesn't really cause the reaction. So the higher the fat and the less proteins, the less that autoimmune response will be. And so, I tend to consume dairy for the fat portion of it in general. So it's really high fat dairy. But on another note, I wanted to ask you, like, you're on the road, or I'm on the road right now. I travel a lot, and when we landed here on the plane, the first thing that I did was I went to the grocery store with Ty, and we bought strawberries, blueberries, kale, broccoli, in the organic section, and a bunch of other veggies and stuff, and some nuts. Yeah. Whole Foods, basically, and brought them back to the hotel so we could eat like healthy food, because there's almost nothing at a restaurant. I mean, it's tough to eat the way I want to eat.
And be on the road. Yeah.
And but one thing I've been working on lately is I really do want to get different recipes where it's either trail mixes or dried meats or just some nutritious options like Heather's Choice. I love her. And she makes those packaroons, which are like these coconut, delightful, delicious little almond powder, I think. I don't remember what's in them, but she makes these little coconut deals that just taste awesome, and they're easy, and you could throw them in your bag and go, and they're nutritious, and they give you fats, healthy fats, and healthy carbs, and some protein. And what kind of thing do you take on the road, and have you worked on any of that kind of like backpacking type food? Or
well, when we've been on the road, I always try to plan accordingly. If I can bring some, we brought a lot of jerky with us to Montana and to when I went down to Texas and stuff, and I try to plan things out accordingly. a lot of trail mix and stuff, and I'll just throw things in
Yeah.
the bag. And I've actually tried to make macaroons and failed.
Did
They're
you?
almond powder or almond meal and usually egg white. So they are, like you said, protein
Yeah.
and stuff. I'm working on that recipe.
Dude, I'll do one of those. You'll be my hero.
I'm trying. I have
Peanut
this stuff
butter
at home.
balls. I've had some of those. My friend Dana Monroe makes those. Aaron Snyder and I eat them. They're not as healthy because they're made out of they're pretty good. They got some protein powder in there and stuff, but they've got, part of the reason they're so delicious is they're made with white chocolate peanut butter, which I'm pretty sure isn't really like peanut butter.
Probably.
But dang.
They're good.
Yeah.
They're an indulgence.
Yes.
Yeah,
In moderation.
we said that I kind of wanted to try to make things that you can bring hunting. And I always too, it always blows my mind when I see people who are so conscious about their scent in the woods, and then they're out there eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or with some.
Especially in whitetail country.
I'm like, what are you doing? I take apples and I soak them in lime and lemon juice the night before and wrap them in non-crunchy things and try to eat what would a deer eat? So when I'm hunting, I try to stay conscious of that. But
you don't open a big stinky can of sardines.
I'm always
which I've eaten 7 cans of sardines since I got here.
It always just really shocks me whenever I see stuff like that. I'm like, that's kind of defeating that purpose. But as far as stuff like that goes on the road, I need to probably get better at writing down what I'm.
Yeah.
So when people ask me what I do, I can say, oh, that's what I do. But jerky, I do. I'll bring
jerky
a lot on
and
the road.
cheese is kind of
Yeah.
we do those Baby L little
Oh yeah,
cheeses
the
in
baby
wax,
bells. I'll
baby-
do those.
And then we'll do dried meats of different kinds. Generally, I don't eat pepperoni and stuff that comes from a lot of the butchers today. You take your meat down there and they'll fill it with nitrates and nitrites and stuff, and I don't want that in my meat. So, and then you don't know whose meat you're really getting. Sometimes,
Right. That's why
You
we
think
do all of our own.
So in the past, I did until I moved to Colorado. I did it all on my own for the last few years before I moved. But then I moved last September. It'll be a year in September that I've been in Colorado. And Aaron and I shot a bunch of deer and animals, and we were hitting the road again and back in and hitting the road again. And so we kind of gave that up to someone else to do. But we love the butcher down there in Colorado who's doing it. He's doing a good job. But I still want to do it myself and try more recipes and stuff. So
we have we have a couple things that we make with sausages and sticks and stuff like that, but it's harder because it's more time consuming.
Yeah.
And also it's easy to make a jerky recipe where anybody can take a hind quarter and slice it thin and marinate it and do it in their oven. And my goal with Outdoor Analia was to do stuff that's obtainable for everybody. It's something that is not going to be you need a ton of equipment.
Have a $5,000 freeze dryer.
Yeah, I want to be you can use this in a dehydrator, but if you don't have one, you can do it in the oven.
Yeah.
Just make these adjustments. So with the sausages and stuff, we have temperature control, and you have to pull it out at the right time. You need the casing, you need the stuffer. We failed last year trying to make Slim Jims. We didn't have the right stuff. And we kind of ended up rolling it out with a roller, cutting it. So we didn't share that with too many people, but we ate it. It was still good, but just less than ideal. So with the sausages and stuff, it's kind of hard, but they're good on the road.
Yeah.
I had the stuff in my backpack today, and
so good.
I was like, if a pack of wild dogs or coyotes are on the mountain, they might sniff me down with this backpack full of meat snacks, but
it's hard to beat those stuff you do on your own, and it does take some practice. One of the things that I've seen that I really my buddy, his wife and him can their a bunch of their meat.
I'm going to try that this year.
Yeah, and my wife cans lots of things, so we're excited to try that with some meat because they're it kind of comes out of the can. Out of the jar,
you can eat it right out of the jar.
Yeah, and they mix a little
Au jus.
homemade mayonnaise or whatever in there, and they do it just flakes apart like a roast or something. And
I met a lady that does her own canning. Her husband is a hunter, and she said her favorite way to eat it is to can it. So she invited me over to her house this fall, and said that I could kind of watch her do it. So I'm going to take her up on that, because that's one thing that my dad has had in his little folder of recipes for years is he wants to can meat, and we want to can it. But
Meat Eater did that episode with his brother. I think it was his brother in Alaska, where they talked about, canning and doing their own meats and stuff. And they were, it's a good episode. I can't remember which one it was, but they talked about it, and they were talking about how, they, do that jalapeno cheese, like pepperoni.
Yeah.
And, but he's like, the, cheese stuff, cause it gets up to a certain temperature, it gets so hot. It's not real cheese, really. It's some kind of chemical thing. And he's like, but dang, it's good.
Yeah.
And so I have friends and people that bring me some cheese sausage, and I'm like, what exactly is this? And somebody, I think they said it was something closer to airline fuel than it is like food.
It's so funny you say that. So we have that recipe that we make, what do you call it? What's this? It's the stick. It's like a sauce, like a pepperoni. It's jalapeno, and it's dried jalapenos, and then we buy the cheese at the curing store, or the place that they sell. And the one time it was in the basement, and my brother wanted to make nachos and didn't know that it wasn't like a cheese that you just throw over nachos.
Right.
And he put the nachos in the microwave for whatever the time was. Cheese wasn't melting. Finally, he tried it, and he's like, this tastes like rubber. And I'm like, where'd you get that? And he's like, downstairs. I'm like, that's the little chunks. Like, those are for
that's a little
the
creepy
smoker. But yeah, that cheese is, we use it in such little quantity that it's like, I try to justify it. But I'm like, the recipe's like, or the ingredient list is about this long. You're like, So
yes.
It's something that's like cheese.
That's the thing, when you have stuff that you like, but it's not good for you. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Especially like my wife, she's a big baker when it comes to like, she did wedding cakes for a long time, and
cool.
like homemade chocolates and stuff, peanut butter cups kind of things, and she's really good. But when you're using real chocolate, you have to temper it and all that stuff, and it has to hit that right temperature. Otherwise, it just melts.
Yeah.
When it shouldn't.
It separates
and so it's very difficult to make your candies and treats and stuff out of real chocolate. And so you get melting chocolates.
Yeah.
And those things are like mostly hydrogenated oils mixed with some chocolate flavor. But it's like so easy to use, and it hardens perfectly, and it looks
good.
Yeah, it looks good, and it tastes pretty good. People don't know any better. But it's one of those things where most of the food products out there are made like that because of the convenience factor. 'Cause it's so easy.
The convenience factor plays a huge role, and that's another thing I get. People will say a lot, I wish I had the time that you have, to do all this stuff. And I said, well, for me, it's not make the time. It's that's how we live. It's not,
right.
It's an afterthought now because we've been doing it for so long, but that's a priority to me. Is I like to come home. I love to cook. I enjoy it. It's something.
It's not a chore.
It's not a chore. It's actually like relaxing. I enjoy it, but I've been told many times I don't have the time, the luxury. And I'm like, yeah. So with my recipes, I do kind of try to make them easy,
quick.
Like, yeah, quick and less cleanup than, people don't want to spend a lot of time after work cooking and cleaning and stuff.
Yeah, my wife, I have a photograph my wife sent me last week. She sent it to my phone of my own breakfast. So I got my breakfast and I set it on the table and it was all on this plate and everything. And then I had to run and get on a phone call, but I was dying to get back to my breakfast. She took a photo and she texted it to me and she said, "Here's your bad breath breakfast." and it had a big sprig of kale on it, a couple of hard-boiled eggs, a piece of broccoli. It had a raw onion, like a green onion, across there, a bowl of cherries, and mostly she was referring to the onion. But like, I realized that most people, there was no cooking really here. We boiled the eggs a couple days ago, right? And so, and then there was a couple olives, but you have like cherries and green veggies and onions, and I eat all that stuff without cooking it or preparing it, and I just grab it and I eat it.
Yeah.
And the onions can give you some breath, onion breath, but I love that food.
Yeah.
And so when people say it takes a whole bunch of work, not if you just eat it.
Yeah, just grab it. And
but
go.
I will say, for some people, they just can't bear it. But I've been eating low sugar foods for so long that I can't really stand sweet foods. And low sugar foods taste good to me. Mm-hmm. So your palate will adjust over time. I was a missionary in Japan for a couple years.
Oh, that's really cool.
And we didn't eat sugar. Like, they don't eat sugar there. They had an all-you-could-eat cake restaurant. And I was like, what? Like, how many pieces of cake can you really eat?
Yeah.
Right? Well, if you're American and you're eating their food, it's more like a semi-sweet, like, roll.
Like a sponge.
Dude, you could eat like 6 of those cakes, man. So us white dudes would roll in there and just crush that place. And a Japanese person would come in there and eat like 2 slices and be like, whoa, too sweet. I can't do any more. And it just goes to show how different, they couldn't eat syrup.
Yeah.
Like they put syrup on a pancake. They were like, oh my gosh. And I'm like that now, like throwing that much sugar on something is just overwhelming.
That's another thing we want to do is we talk about syrup is we want to next year. I wanted to do it this year, but time got away from me. Is tap our own trees because have you ever had pure maple syrup?
I have bought it at the store.
That's a sugar maple right there, is it, Tom? Yes, you could tap that tree in around February, and
it'll run.
Sap will run out, and then you boil it and do a couple different things to it, and then you have your own pure maple syrup. And we also have our own bees on our property over here. Yeah, my dad has bees and local honey, and it tastes different than
it does
the sweet stuff. So I could see why they can't stomach the sweetness of our food here.
Yeah, no, it's different. I think the whole concept of hunting and outdoors and tying that into our everyday life and how we eat, it's a critical message. You look at how many people that don't hunt that really respect meat eater because the motives for why he's doing what he's doing isn't, like you said, it made a joke yesterday. I haven't figured out how to cook antlers yet and make them super delicious, right?
Can't eat antlers, yeah.
And so it's true. Like, you can't. We all love a good set of antlers, but they're not. That's not the main reason why I hunt. And it really is the food. In fact, I was on a podcast with Clay Hayes at Twisted Stave, and he's a big self bow hunter, archery hunter, cool dude. But he was hunting. He asked me one time on a podcast, the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Rendezvous, a couple of years ago. He's like, or a year ago or so. He said, Ryan, if you had only one weapon you could choose for the rest of your life, it'd be a bow, wouldn't it? And I'm like, no, it'd be a rifle. And he's like, what? And I'm like, Clay, if I had one weapon and I only have a couple days of vacation a year, I'd choose a rifle because it's about the meat.
Yeah.
A big, huge part of it is the meat. I'm practical.
Yeah.
I really do want to bring home a freezer full of meat every year. And since I really delved into Gritty Bowman, I'm blessed that way. And not just me, extended family, because they all have plenty of meat now too.
Yeah.
Because I get to do a lot of these hunts.
And share and stuff.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me yesterday, one of the guys that was on our course with us, and he said, it's so cool that you sustain a lifestyle on wild game, but how many deer do you have to shoot per year to live off of that? And I said our answer is about 3 or 4, but we'll hit some doe, and but it's just the 2 of us. So we package the backstrap, we cut them to we're not going to waste this much and stuff like that. But
for me, we shoot an elk, and that will feed my wife and 3 kids.
Yeah.
For almost the year, about 10 months, and then we're out. And then, so if we shoot a mule deer and throw that in there, a mule deer and an elk will feed my whole family for the year. I'd like more because my kids are getting older and they're eating more. Like maybe it's even just that's cutting it really close. Out here, I think how many whitetail are in the United States now? Or some kind of insane estimate of deer. You guys got them growing out your ears, like out east. And to be able to shoot 5 to 10 deer a year, what better and more natural way to source your protein than to support, or than to and I have a lot of farmers that are friends, and not to disparage, or ranchers, ranching or anything. But then you also have like big ranching, like factory farming.
Yeah.
Which I really think is so detrimental for the environment and to health. Not like your free range cattle kind of place. But so many people eat meat here in the United States, no idea where it comes from, and don't get it on their own. And there's whitetail running around like for the taking.
Yeah.
So
when I was in college, I wasn't eating meat.
Yeah.
And I kind of dove into the background of factory farming, and I don't like the word vegan, but I'll say plant-based lifestyle. And the statistics on how many farms, like if everybody hunted, our carbon footprint would be so much different, because all these farms are taking up space and they have to feed the cows corn, so they're growing more corn, so it just comes down to it, and it's kind of mind-blowing. I won't get too much into it.
I know. That's where Shane Mahoney's, what's his initiative called? It's the Wild Game. I forget what it's called. I should know. But he's basically making an effort to actually assess the monetary value of the wildlife take in the United States and Canada that occurs every year. And how much of it is shared, how much of it is harvested, and not, I hear Rinella talk about it all the time. Why does there have to be a monetary value on wildlife in general? Why can't that mountain just be a mountain because it's a mountain?
Yeah.
It's not doing anything. Well, it's being a mountain, right? And so is wildlife. But to put a dollar value on it stacks it up against alternative uses of that land. Mm-hmm. And I think Shane Mahoney's work is important because of the fact that I think they said 300 million pounds of whitetail or of deer meat is harvested in the U.S. every year. That's a lot of meat. Mm-hmm. If that 300 million pounds of meat is now gone, and you're sourcing that from cattle production or something, or chicken,
right?
Think of the footprint that's going to cause, the amount of increased farming, encroachment on habitat. And right now, that 300 million pounds is probably sourced in the most organic and healthy and natural way when you compare that to an alternative like trying to get that same protein source from farming.
Not to mention all the hormones and steroids and stuff that go into those.
Yeah, anytime you put them in a feedlot like that, you got too many animals in one place. It's not natural, and the diseases and the bacteria is just too strong. You have to do it in a things start to go south. So,
and another reason I respect Stephen Rinella so much is that he also uses as much of the animal as he can. And I've the last 2 years made my own bone broth by boiling down the bones, and I've made Rocky Mountain oysters.
Nice.
Tom's not a huge fan of them. He doesn't like the texture of
the nutty
scallops.
flavor.
The nutty. No pun intended, but I'm gonna try it. He ate behind the eyeballs of the mule deer the one time and said it tastes like a yeasty flavor.
Yeah,
I kind of want to try it.
I've eaten the boiled head on my bear and ate the meat off of it.
Was it good?
Well, it depends on where you shoot your bear.
Okay.
Is it a coastal bear? Is it an inland bear?
Was it feeding on berries and stuff for?
Yeah, and these bears in POW were eating a lot of fish, so it tasted like beef. I'll be honest; it has a nice beefy flavor, but it smells like fish.
Interesting.
So, and it smells like bad fish.
Oh.
And so, like I said, the coconut milk, some curry and stuff, and it really has a nice flavor to it when you do that. Mm-hmm. But right off the head, it was definitely felt manly. I mean, no, womanly.
I-
It felt caveman-y. But no, it wasn't that good. But I've done it with deer as well, and I've seen those guys eat tongue, and I've tried that.
Tongue, I love tongue.
It's good.
Love tongue.
Yeah.
I love heart.
What's funny is Rinella has that. I think it was some episode. He's like, "Do you realize how many deer testicles are just abandoned,
Left and
like
heart.
in the will?" Right?
Yeah.
Liver and heart. And he's like, "Look at this," and it's a completely delicious and viable food
Yeah.
source, and yet we don't eat it. I try to eat organ meat, the testes, all that stuff that I used to not eat. I
Yeah.
try to consume way more of the animal than I used to.
I like heart. I like tongue. And
I love bone broth.
bone broth is delicious. It's really good for you, too. There's like places in New York popping up that's like bone broth cafes.
It's so easy to make. Like you take an elk bone and you throw it in there,
Roast it and then boil it down.
and it turns into gelatin.
Yeah.
which we froze, put in the freezer, and then you pull that stuff out, and it makes its bone stock. It's so much better than any kind of beef stock that you're getting at the store or whatever.
It's beautiful. The color alone is just deep.
Bear bone broth, I don't recommend.
No?
If they're fish bears, that again, I mean that right there, it tasted like rancid fish a little bit.
I've-
On the particular bear I ate, we made a bunch of different soups and stuff with it. I probably ate half of the bone broth, and finally it got to a point where I was like, my wife's like, "Look, they can't stand the smell of it whenever you like warm it up in the house." I'm like, "It tastes good." She's like, "Yeah, it does, but it just smells strong."
It's stinky. The
Yeah.
the fishiness. But
It smelled like fish,
we
man.
we even take the liver, and for people that don't like liver, like we don't. We take our liver and we slice it thin.
Dude,
and we put it in the dehydrator for our dog and make dog treats.
Oh yeah,
Every dog,
yeah.
they go
Every dog
crazy
loves
for them,
liver.
and it's like, well, don't throw it out, save it, and
yeah.
try to
Repurpose
use
it,
it. Yeah,
use
'cause
it.
you're harvesting that animal. You want to try to
What
use it.
is your favorite organ meat?
Oh, I like heart. Tongue is good too. I don't know.
You know what's good is squirrel kidney.
I love squirrel. We like the little hearts are really
It
good.
tastes like
too.
bacon, dude. Tom, I'm telling you, it tastes like bacon. Maybe it's the liver.
Maybe
All squirrel, heart, liver,
the heart's really good.
heart, liver, and
Squirrel's
the kidneys, all that stuff inside that squirrel. It tastes good.
Yeah,
Really good.
I like squirrel.
One of them tastes like bacon.
Yeah, gizzard from the turkey.
Gizzard?
When I shot my turkey, my dad said, "Please save the gizzard,"
Yeah.
and we never did that before, so I could tell you how not to save a gizzard. But is it the trike? What is that in the neck? We pull that and we boil it down too. But I try to say. I made this necklace I'm wearing. I know if you're listening to it,
I know. I saw that.
you can't see it,
It's
but
your-
it says
that's
turkey
cool.
spur.
That looks like some kind of like bear claw.
Everybody thinks. Somebody asked me where I bought it, and I said
Or
it's actually
like
a
a tooth.
spur. Yeah, tooth. But I saved all my turkey feathers, and I've been making necklaces and stuff. So
That's a cool necklace.
thanks.
You need to share that on your blog.
I'm gonna do a tutorial on how to do it.
Nice.
Because a lot of girls have asked
It's just
me.
the right size. It is cool.
It's kind of cool. It's
Definitely.
has a story when I shot.
It's got sentimental value.
Yeah. But
I don't think I've killed a turkey.
well, send me a spur and I'll
Nice.
make some jewelry from it.
I'm
but
working on it.
Yeah.
These people tell me it's just
Yeah.
like elk hunting, but somehow I don't think it's just like elk hunting.
You know, I have not been on an elk hunt, but I did see two whenever I was mule deer hunting.
Yeah.
We saw 2 5x5s. That's how you do the elk too, right?
Oh yeah,
Did you guys out west?
we got it figured out.
You have a little bit more, like we do like 11 point, 12 point here. You guys
See,
are like
the thing
5
is
by 5.
If it's, I guess an 11. What if it's a 4x6?
11 point?
Yeah, but how do you know which side? How it's configured?
It's
just
I don't
there's-
know.
It just leaves
it's a
too much
different- but-
and then the eye guards or no eye guards,
Yeah.
do those count as points or
They count here,
because
yeah.
it's a 4x4 with eye guards?
Yeah.
If you're going out west,
That's the eye guards are like big thing out there, right?
yeah. You got to like call it out.
Yeah. So we're my mule deer this
Brow
year was the
tines.
first time. Yeah, the brow tines, the G2s, like. But yeah, my turkey this year, it was kind of cool here in the gobble. The guy came in and
Yeah.
it was an interesting. Tom was calling. It was pouring down rain, and he had just said, I wonder if we're the only two idiots out here today. And sure enough, he did a call, and this gobbler came in gobbling, and that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I leaned back. We were in a blind because it was raining, and I leaned back on the little bucket I was sitting on so my gun didn't stick out of the blind.
Yeah.
And I was shooting a 12-gauge Benelli Super Black Eagle 2 with a 3-inch shell, turkey shell. And I saw the turkey go down, but I flew backwards because the force from the gun, and Tom popped up out of the blind and was like, you shot it, and went running towards the turkey, and I'm still on my back trying to figure out what was going on. So that was a cool experience. So every time I look at this necklace, I think of that. I wish I had it on video, but I didn't get it.
That's really cool. Are you going to do more video?
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm a one person show, and it's really hard.
And you have a regular full-time job gig, you know?
I do. Yeah. So I like to get the hunt on camera if I can. For me, if I do,
encourage everyone to do it best they can, because someone like you, you're a woman, you're into where your food comes from, you're responsible, you really buck the stereotype of what a hunter is.
Yeah.
And I think that does tremendous good for our industry.
Thank you.
And in general, and I think that it's highly, and so when you share your experiences and you bring into someone's home who would otherwise close their ears to someone like me, they'll be like, wow, she hunts and this is how she does it, and this is how she prepares her food. And all of a sudden that just carries a lot more weight and meaning for people, for a lot of people. So, and I think the more hunters out there that are sharing a responsible message, the more we're going to have a positive influence overall.
It only helps. It helps the industry. And I get a lot of times people will ask me, that's so cool that you hunt. How do I get my wife involved? Or how do I get my girlfriend involved? And just the fact that we can go out together and we have just another thing that we do that's just
the two of you.
It makes us closer, but it's also fun. And then we get kind of competitive. And I mean, we did a boys versus girls turkey hunt this past season, and we had a couple buddies come out from Utah, and everything turned into a competition. We were practicing our bows, girls versus boys, shooting shotgun, girls versus boys, and it's fun, and we enjoy it. And then at the end of the day, if we get something, we get to come home and fill our freezer, and it just goes full circle from field to plate, and for me, it's more rewarding than having a record-breaking mule, deer, or whitetail. I mean, that's great. I love the chase.
I love the outdoor experience. Like Shane Mahoney said, he talked about, he's like, when you're out there chasing an animal, there's nothing else on this earth that we do in general. I mean, for the most part, that turns on our senses.
Yeah.
In the same way, in the same primitive way that hunting does. You can go on a hike with a camera, and that's different, though, still, yet, from that of actually stopping a beating heart.
Yeah.
Going out.
I cried the first time I took an animal's life, because it is very emotional, and it's a raw emotion that you're ending something's life, but you're fulfilling something that you're rewarding yourself as the meat you come from. And we, too, a lot of people say, oh, you just hunt. But they don't know how much work we go into putting in our food plots to make healthy deer. Yeah. And we want those deer to have like a sanctuary, not even for hunting, but we want them to be healthy,
right? Like quality deer management,
healthy. So I mean, all year we're putting in time and effort and checking our trail cams and stuff.
And I looked at the East Coast guys hunting with whitetails and putting in their food plots and stuff. I was like, oh, brother, you guys, it's just fancy baiting.
We don't hunt over our food plots.
Well, one thing I would say is, as I learned more about it, and Rinella had helped me kind of see different angles of, like you said earlier, perspective. You look at what Rinella, he was talking about. Now, one of the guys he had, Doug Duran, maybe, I forget it. I think so. He's talking about how as they put in different shrubs and trees and things to increase the quality of that location, along with that, they brought in like the quality of Sean DeGray is distracting me. He's like, they increased the number of birds. They increase the number of small game. They increase the number. And I started to realize that as you do things to your property to increase the health of the deer, and you do bedding areas, and you create these havens, and then these feeding areas, you increase not just deer, but everything.
Yeah.
Everything benefits from it. And what a better way to design, if you have land, contribute to the landscape and to increasing habitat for all critters than to do these things versus a mono agricultural, where you have just corn going for as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
That is not natural.
No.
Right? I mean, I think it's just, let's applaud some folks for taking the time to actually build landscapes that not just help deer, but help everything.
Yeah. Conservation. And
yeah.
You're growing, if you're planting trees, we planted apple trees. That's going to be there hopefully long before.
Yeah.
When we're long gone. So
blacktail love apples. I've planted a bunch of apple trees in Oregon because the deer just
love it.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
well, I had a blast today shooting bows.
I'm really glad that we got to finally meet and then spend some time on the mountain with you shooting, and we'll talk some wild game.
We can plug Total Archery Challenge. They have another one in Boyne, Michigan. And then they have the one in Terry Peaks in South Dakota. Sean is doing another one in Snowbird, and Gritty Bowman's gonna go to that one in Snowbird and do another gritty hike. And we have another one in Big Sky, Montana. We're gonna do a hike there, and Snyder is gonna come to Montana one. We're gonna try to maybe make Terry Peak. We don't know yet, but I had a blast out here back east.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, even if you're not sighted in 100 yards, I'm sighted in at 40 yards. And
we did that course today, and there was a couple of 55, 60-yard shots, and we just walked in a little closer.
Yeah, so
it's not a competition.
If you're afraid...
Well, everything's a competition with me. But
I'm surprised we didn't make it a competition today, but we're both kind of
tired, aren't we?
Kind of tired, and I was happy when I hit the target, but this is my first time doing this, and I will say we'll be back because it was a really fun time.
Yeah.
So
the courses here, they're neat. That Sean is the other event I really enjoy is the Northwest Mountain Challenge, and they have an event in Hoodoo in Oregon, and they have one that they do in Tamarack. Very very similar to this, not quite as big, not as many courses, but they do a great job as well, and I've been to that in the years past. But, man, these things are great for bow hunters, just to get out. It's not like shooting paper.
No.
It's not shooting targets. This is like real-life situations.
There were some keyholes that you had to shoot through on the course we were on today, and the course yesterday, there was elevation that I'm not used to shooting uphill when I practice with a target, but it was a lot of fun. It was different.
Where can people find you on Instagram? What's your handles?
Outdoor Annalea.
Annalea, and
spelled ANNALEA. And you can follow my blog at www.outdoorannalea.com, and I will post my dressing recipe for you.
Yes.
And I'm going to work on my gritty challenge for the summer will be to post more recipes so I can have people that are asking how to cook wild game.
Yes. If you think of something good for on the road travel food, if you figure out that macaroon, packaroon kind of situation,
okay, I'll let you know. I will.
Okay.
Well,
huge thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, it was fun. I was a little nervous to do a podcast, especially with you, because I was like, you're one of the guys that I kind of idolize in the hunting industry. So I was like, oh man, I hope I don't embarrass myself today. But
hey, I appreciate that.
So. But
all right. Stay gritty.
Stay gritty. Hashtag stay gritty.
That's right.
That was fun.
The future of public lands. All of us own them, all of us use them. Political activists are demanding us to hand over the public lands where the state legislators could transfer and control these lands. U.S. citizens own 640 million acres of public lands, which creates 6.1 million jobs and generates $646 billion per year.
States have been selling off land to pay bills for over 100 years, thus closing access to the public. 39% of original 64 million acres have been sold. The cost of land management would break most state budgets. For instance, who will pay the hundreds of millions of dollars to fight major wildfires each year? It doesn't matter how many promises are made. The financial reality is it will force states to have to sell off our public land.
President Theodore Roosevelt said, "We must preserve our lands for future generations, not merely to the people now alive, but to the unborn people. Our duty to the whole bids us restrain an unprincipled present-day minority from wasting the heritage of these unborn generations."